Hi there, welcome to my channel. Here we are working on a Knitmaster 100. Here I am casting on, and today we're going to use different yarns, and we're going to use today what is called a novelty yarn or a fancy yarn. Here I am going to move one loop from the left and to the right, so it'll be every second needle that you start off with this experimental knitting. This is where I practice the tension, so I tend to make a number of rows just to feel the tension to see if it needs to be adjusted. What you do next here is you take another loop and you pass it over to the right again, and so that you will have one needle working and three needles not working. Here is where I'm showing it from the top view, and you can see I'm just moving that loop over to the right. I keep all the loops to the right so that I can have a kind of a rhythm so that it works easier. Here I am just measuring the tension to see how it works. Here we're going to use some fancy or novelty yarn as I know it, and here we're going to just put it into the machine to see how it works. Knitting machines don't like this kind of yarn. It can be very difficult to knit with this kind of yarn, so we're just going to see how this knits. I'm probably going to do about 4 rows just so that I can see how this yarn works. I just pushed the needles up so that it would catch this yarn. This makes it a little bit easier. It's still in working position, and it's just to help to make sure that the yarn is caught. Here I am knitting with this yarn. It's actually went very easy, and I was very unusual. I did 2 rows just to check, and it knitted really well, so I was quite surprised. What you do now is the 3 needles that are in non-working position, you take the center of that needle and you bring it forward, and this will be knitted in to kind of close the loops. What I'm doing here is just a preliminary. I just wanted to see if this yarn would work on a tighter stitch or use more needles, and then I tried it with a few more needles, and it seemed to work all right. There was a little bit of resistance, but it seemed to work fine. Here I am about to change the yarn. I'm using a very thin fine yarn. I think it's a cotton blend, I'm not too sure. Here I'm changing it, and now I'm just going to knit 2 rows in this yarn just to put all the knitting together basically. With the knitting, what the instruction manual was saying is that you change your stitch style to make it more tighter for the thinner yarns, but I found that it actually was too it didn't seem to want to work that well, so I left it on the same measurement gauge that I had already done, and that seemed to work just fine. I did find that the yarn, because it was thin, it would sometimes pull a bit tight and then it would actually break, so I would say just leave it on the same tension, and that should work just fine. Here I am changing the yarn. This is where I push the needles to make an elongated stitch. You can use as many different colors as you want if you wanted to do this. I'm just going to start now doing elongated stitches as part of the pattern, and this is what I'll be doing. The yarn I'm using is the same as the green yarn. It's a kind of brown yarn that I'm using. It's a double knit, and it works just fine. I did find when after I had done the fancy yarn or the novelty yarn, that it was a little bit tight for making the stitches. So you just got to watch it. Also, just watch that you don't drop any of the stitches. This was the hardest part of the actual pattern that I was doing. It did take a little bit longer, but I suppose after you've done a number of rows you'll get used to it, and then you'll get a bit faster. It was just a little bit of a slow process here, and with the camera in front of me I just found it a little bit difficult to actually maneuver. I'm showing this process right from the beginning to the end so that you can see how it goes. Maybe you noticed, but I would adjust the needles just a little bit to make sure that it was all even. The whole purpose of it is to make sure that it's all even before you make an elongated stitch. This takes a bit of time, and as you sort it out, I found that if I push the needles a little bit and pull the yarn down, that seemed to work better to make the elongated stitch. Here you can see the thinner grey yarn that I used and the elongated stitch that I've used. As you can see, the grey one actually looks quite even, and that's because I didn't change the tension of it, and that seemed to make the knitting look much better. The moment I made the tension much tighter for the grey yarn, it seemed to pull a little bit strange. Here I'm starting again. I'm basically doing some cables, and this is how I do the cables. It's basically 2-on-2 cables that you wrap over. It was just, I did find it a little bit tight, and I feel that as I practice it I will probably make the elongated stitches a little bit better. It was just a little bit tight, a little bit awkward with the camera in order to do the wrap over on the cables. With cabling, I always try to do from left to right first. Whenever I think of cabling, I do that for most cabling. I just wanted to go a certain direction. When you're doing other cabling, you do from left to right and then from right to left when you do a number of rows. That's just to create the different effects of cabling. But with this cabling I'm doing here, I just work from left to right. This is the effect of the cabling. As you can see, it does take a bit of time as well, Here I'm going to be changing the yarn and going on to the next section. I've changed the yarn to the grey yarn, the thin yarn. Here I'm pulling the dial down a little bit just to see initially how I wanted it, but I realized it didn't really matter whether the dial was down or not with the cabling section part of it. So I didn't really, for the next part of the cabling, I didn't bother to turn the dial down to make it tighter. Here I am doing the second row. This is just really to hold the knitting together. I did do a tighter dial stitch on here. Here I am returning it back to what it was, but I probably won't do that again. This is your completed pattern basically. So this is where you start again, and where you actually repeat the pattern from the beginning. I did find you had to be quite careful with this pattern. It's not that easy to do, and you just have to have really great patience with it. I did find that it's an actual beautiful knit. It's actually a really incredible knit to do, and if you had to do really difficult or intricate kind of knitwear, this would be a fantastic way of doing it. This doesn't actually require you to actually do a pattern. It's just a case of doing basically a rows in different colors, basically a stripe. But you could actually use very closely related colors, and you can do it on a variety of different kind of stripes, and you could probably make an incredible garment. This is a great garment for anything you want to do. If you had to do this for like a costume as well, it would actually be quite effective. You could actually attach a sequence to this and would actually work really well. Here I am changing the yarn again. This is where I'm going to start redoing the knitting. Basically what I've done is I've gone one needle in and one needle out, basically just to do this knit, and here I am doing the 2 rows to start off the next one. This pattern did get a bit easier as I went along, and it's just a case of just how you work it. Here I am doing 1 needle on and 3 needles off, and this is how you do your row. And this is just you forming the row for the next yarn afterwards. The fancy yarn, the furry kind of yarn, or fancy yarn or novelty yarn, it's really nice. I actually really like it a lot, as I've said before, and it's something I'll be looking into. Most machines, like I have said before, do not like this yarn at all, and it's always been a difficult one, but for some reason on this machine it seemed to not mind so much working with this yarn. I will be trying to discover more about it and see if I can find any more of these types of yarns. It could be to do with how the yarn is twisted. Sometimes if the yarns are twisted a certain way, they can be much smoother to work with, even though they've got fancy yarns with this. If you try to knit with this on say an Empisal or a Brother knitting machine or standard gauge, it wouldn't work very well. So it's just a case of testing to see how these yarns work. This yarn probably would work on an LK 150, which is does the double knits fairly well. So you could try this yarn and see how it works on the double knits. The double knits have been on the LK 150. Here I am changing the yarn again to the fancy yarn. Here I did it a little bit differently. You're supposed to push the needles forward into non-working position, and you basically are supposed to knit the yarn over the needles. I didn't quite do that here. I kind of left them in working position and then I knitted them in just to see what would happen, and then I did a second row back. It's actually a better idea if you do the knit over the needles first, and then that'll be better, and then you push the other needles into working position. I did find a little bit tight the way I did it here, but otherwise it actually did work. So if you do get it wrong, you can still knit with it. Would I do this knitting again? Yes, I would. I think this is an incredible knit. I can think of a number of ways I could use this. This would be really great for menswear as well, because you could make texturized jumpers really nicely. You could actually work this for Christmas. The other thing is, if you get unusual yarns, unusual colors, you could probably make something that's really inspiring, or very tribal, or very kind of city urban or something like that, and it would really look great. Here I am doing the dial again to switch it down to make it tighter, but I just found, as you can see, it was a little bit difficult. After this I decided, no, I'm not going to use such a tight yarn anymore. I did find that sometimes it would snap, and because of the tightness, and I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. Overall, this knit was a little bit more complex, but actually you can actually do a lot with it. So I would actually give it a go and see what you can do with it. Here I am doing the elongated stitch again. What I haven't done, I've just pushed them up to kind of working position, and I will just be putting the yarn over the needles. With this particular machine, you have to push the needles down a little bit. You can't actually push it all the way to the top, because you've got to pull the yarn with the needles. So the latch actually goes to where the pegs are. The pegs are the front sections of the machine, and that's where you gauge where the needles should be positioned, because you've got to open the latch tools, and if the latch tools are just slightly behind the pegs, then what happens is when you put the yarn over, it tends to work much better. Here I haven't done the needles enough on the pegs, so I've had to just adjust to make sure that the yarn can work for the elongated stitch. Here you can see I've finally done the elongated stitch. I know that this video is a little bit longer than what I hoped. You just got to make sure your latch tools are, your latches are open, when you do some of this knitting. That's something I've got to constantly remind myself. And like I say, this video is a little bit longer, but if I don't show you the actual detail of it, then you will see that it's not so easy. Here I've changed yarn again, and I'm going to start the process. Here's the final sample that I did. I actually had to do the sample twice because I didn't get it right the first time, but as you can see, it's actually a beautiful knit, and I think it's worthwhile trying to do, and it's so great in the different colors. Well, I hope you like this knit. This is the end of the video. I haven't decided what I'm going to do next, so I would like to say please subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you soon.